Welcome to our channel. Please hit the subscribe button so that you'll be notified whenever our new video comes out. The Furnished Room is a short story by O. Henry. The tale is a third-person point of view set in a theater community at the New York West Side. The story revolves around the themes of death, love, hopelessness, and the transitory nature of life. The short story begins in a red-housed neighborhood in New York. A frazzled young man, covered in dust, goes door to door until he stops at the 12th door and rings the bell. The landlady, Mrs. Purdy, answers and shows him a spare room on the 3rd floor, which he rents for a week. His true intention, however, is to inquire about an actress named Eloise Vashner, described as having a dark spot near her left eye and reddish gold hair. Deeply in love with Eloise, he asks Mrs. Purdy if she has ever rented a room to Eloise, but she denies having done so. Despite his relentless search and questions to theater people and in theaters for the last 5 months, his efforts have been in vain. After Mrs. Purdy leaves, the young man sits in a chair in the furnished room, illuminated by gaslight, and observes the furniture, which bears marks of past tenants' anger and misuse. Amidst his contemplation, he catches the strong fragrance that seemed like a living visitant of mignonette, a white flower, reminiscent of Eloise's favorite perfume and historically associated with romance and love. Earnestly believing that she has been in this room, he searches through the belongings, hoping to find something that belonged to her. He even goes to the housekeeper to further inquire about the description of the previous tenants but returns unsatisfied to a room that was now dead of the earlier essence of life. He tears the bedsheets into pieces, stuffing them in all the cracks and rifts in the room, seals all the windows and the doors. He turns off the gaslight and then turns it back on fully, lying on the bed, seemingly surrendering to his despair and death. Later that evening, Mrs. Purdy confides in her colleague, Mrs. McCool, about renting the room to the young man but not disclosing the events of the previous week involving a suicide by gas in that very room. Mrs. McCool praises Mrs. Purdy's business acumen and recalls their efforts to clean up after the tragic incident, describing the victim as beautiful and charming, with a dark mole near her left eye confirming that the deceased tenant was, in fact, Eloise Vashner, the girl the young man had been desperately seeking. The story's tragic nature emerges from the young man's unyielding pursuit of love and meaning in a world seemingly indifferent to his desires. His emotional investment in finding Eloise becomes an all-encompassing obsession, driving him to madness and a sense of hopelessness. Through a stream of consciousness narrative, readers gain access to the protagonist's spiraling thoughts, reflecting the tumultuous state of his mind. As he ransacks the room in search of clues of Eloise's existence, the young man's desperate actions reveals a character consumed by unrequited love and depths of his emotional instability. His unhealthy fixation on the scent of mignonette becomes a symbol of his longing for connection, yet his search only leads to despair. The juxtaposition of his intense emotions with the ordinary surroundings of the room heightens the tragedy of his situation, emphasizing the insignificance of human endeavors in the face of the vast and indifferent universe. This leads to the themes of existential dread, hopelessness, and nothingness. The young man's existential dread arises from his inability to find a purposeful existence or attain the love he yearns for. His quest for Eloise serves as a metaphor for the human search for meaning in an uncaring world. The realization of Eloise's tragic fate instills a profound sense of hopelessness, questioning the significance of his own life and experiences. The room, a symbol of stagnant memories and lost opportunities, encapsulates the hopelessness that accompanies the pursuit of an elusive love. The room, a mere physical space, becomes a representation of the emptiness and futility of his pursuits, mirroring the broader human condition where one grapples with the void and the fleeting nature of life. At first glance, the story appears to follow a traditional narrative of unrequited love and a young man's desperate search for his beloved Eloise Vashner. The surprise twist lies in the revelation that Eloise was the previous tenant who tragically took her life in the same room the young man now occupies. The irony lies in the young man's relentless search for Eloise, unaware that he has been seeking her spirit within the confines of the very room where she met her demise. This twist deepens the tragedy and portraying the cruel whims of fate, where the young man's pursuit of love is tragically intertwined with death.